Overthinkers of Reddit, what unlikely scenario actually came true that you were completely prepared for because you are an overthinker? When my wife and I were getting married and looking for a place for ceremony, we have found this beautiful but quite remote garden. We were signing the contract for the event and I kept thinking that it was quite remote, so I asked, how much time does it take for the ambulance to get here? I became the laughing stock of both families. My then future mother-in-law, who was present at the meeting, literally fell down from the chair laughing. The wedding organizer remembered it for weeks, telling about it everyone we met. My dad ended every sentence with, but maybe you need an ambulance for that. My wife was making siren noises when I was saying something we disagreed on. Every family dinner all the aunts and uncles were checking if the ambulance was present. You name it. The entire package. Still I couldn't get rid of this weird feeling. It would have taken over an hour for the ambulance to get to the garden. After a few weeks I ended up paying a private ambulance to be present at the wedding. Fast forward to the ceremony, as my wife literally walks down the aisle. At the back of the garden I see 2 paramedics running with a stretcher and my dad squeezing my hand whispering, "That's not of your goddamn business. Let them to take care of it." What happened was that one of our older guests got a heart attack and almost died at ceremony. Was saved by the private ambulance. Ever since then, when my wife tells me that I'm overthinking, I just do the siren noise. Edit well. Thanks for the awards everybody. Glad you liked the story. I promise you that I was tired of winning after that. They never heard the end of it. But all the laughs were in good spirit. I apologized to the guy's kids for ruining their inheritance plans, and he was saying that the service was so boring that he preferred to take his chances with the heart attack. So we had a few more laughs and trolling. Some of you are asking how much did the ambulance cost? I don't remember as it was many years ago, and I may not be from your country, but does it matter? Can one really put a price on the "I told you" so you can use any time you want with your mother-in-law? That is such an orgasmic level of "told you" so that you can milk it for literally the rest of your married life. Wow. That's more than overthinking. That's next level psychic abilities of gut intuition. Holy cow, do I hope you pull out the "I told you" so every chance you get. Wow. Are wedding heart attacks a thing? My grandfather-in-law had a cardiac event at my wedding. He lives in middle of nowhere Alaska, but was in a city with multiple world-class hospitals for the wedding. I don't like to think what would have happened if he hadn't been in town for our ceremony. That's amazing, and I hope they at least thanked you. Damn, the way you put it. They kind of went from joking about it to mocking you about it. And him also just laughing thinking about you ignoring your dad and going hell no. Dad, if someone's going to be needing those paramedics, I want to see them put in that ambulance because I freaking paid for it. Best response I have read. I was once driving on the highway behind a car with a couple of kayaks strapped to the roof. My anxious brain kept saying, what if they fall off the car? Final Destination style, I tried to convince myself that it was an irrational fear. But the anxiety got the better of me, and I decided to change lanes and make some distance. About 30 seconds later, cue kayaks, they both slip off the roof and go rolling around the highway. Luckily no one was hurt. But man, that did not help my anxiety at all. Edit to address some comments. 1. I figured I was overthinking, since I don't know anyone else who gets nervous or avoids driving behind cars with loads. But I see now that maybe my behavior wasn't so weird. 2. Apparently a lot of you have seen falling kayaks on the highway. I don't think this is the same exact incident as any of the ones you guys have described. 3. From comments about how to properly tie down a kayak. I think these were not properly secured. I don't think they were tied to the bumpers. I definitely do the Final Destination worries thing too. Usually a big truck piled with giant logs or something. You wonder if some part of you unconsciously registered that the kayaks had been shifting some way. I read that your body can pick up subtle signs of impending doom in various ways that can make you afraid, even if you're not sure why. I also have anxiety, so I can relate. But you probably legitimately subconsciously saw some clues that it wasn't secure. Your subconscious mind couldn't articulate the danger beyond fear of that extract situation, but it was enough to prompt your conscious mind to action, if only to end the anxiety in the moment. That's definitely a movie you can't unsee. Injuring my dominant hand. As a kid I had an irrational fear of having it chopped off. I spent all of grade 6 teaching myself to write and do things with my left hand. I made a conscious effort to remain as ambidextrous as possible. As an adult I broke a few fingers on my dominant hand, but it wasn't a big issue because I could do most things equally with my left hand. Anticlimactic, but it was useful. Lol edit. Thanks for the rewards folks. Edit 2. Spelling. Have the exact same fear and have been working on training my left hand occasionally. I'm also trying to learn to echolocut in case I go blind. In college on occasion upperclassmen would randomly steal the underclassmen towels from the shower stalls and then lock their room doors, so they had to go to the rap bar asked. I had the idea to stash a towel in the drop shielding tiles for just that event. Maybe a week later I became the victim of a towel snatching. However, the upperclassmen were very unhappy to see me strut out with a nice clean towel from my shielding stash. Something similar happened to me at my sorority house, but I just showered for a really long time till they got tired of waiting. I sang and sang and sang. They were my friends and they knew I didn't mind being naked. I always carried an extra juice box / snacks and an extra set of clothes during high school because I was always worried that one of the kids in my school with diabetes might get low and need some sugar for the juice box and snacks and I might get dirty or my clothes would get ruined. The extra clothes. Well, one day the kid in my class with diabetes did need the sugar. As luck would have it, a few days later a girl in my class was having a really bad wardrobe malfunction and couldn't wait for a new shirt, so my XXL t-shirt acted as both a shirt / dress for her. Edit. This blew up while I was working. Thank you everyone for the upvotes. May the world ever be in your favor. All of you. Edit. Spelling / grammar. This is protagonist behavior. Love it. I carry bad seed around with me to feed the ducks on campus because I worry about how much rice and naan the students are feeding them. One day I'm on my way onto campus and I see a lady with her toddler who's fascinated with a bird, but it keeps hopping away every time the baby toddles forward. So I stop and tell the mum that I have bird seed in my pocket. If her kid wants to feed the bird. It wasn't until later that I realized that from her perspective she was in the park with her kid when a stranger approached her and announced, I have bird seed in my pocket. As a diabetic, you the real MVP. The panic attack that the overthinking caused. Edit. I feel like a fraud. I haven't had a panic attack in like 3 years, although I've had a handful of baby panic attacks since then. At one point, 1 month I must have had 30 plus panic attacks. I was constantly in a panic attack / depression cycle, and my brain worked so poorly that it felt like I lost a lot of my intelligence and almost all of my personality. But with therapy, lots of journaling, exercise and especially learning to gauge how likely something is to happen when I experience a fear, and not listening to unwarranted catastrophic thinking, I've recovered a lot and my anxiety levels are much more manageable. Thank you everyone for the awards. But I feel like all these people who still experience the panic attacks deserve them. That crap sucks. Big time. I do this too. Especially at night. If I don't fall asleep now, I'll struggle tomorrow and then panic about not being able to fall asleep and therefore struggling the next day. Edit. OMG, I've never gotten awards on Reddit before and now I feel fancy. Felt. I carry scissors in my glove compartment. They came in handy when a kid tightened a skinny zip tie around my 9-year-old's finger at a park. Completely cut off the circulation. Also the other kid's mom was a nurse, so that was helpful too. Carry scissors and a nurse at all times. Ah crap, I forgot to pack my nurse. I carry some of just about everything in my purse. We were at a beach during off season and a kid wiped out. I had everything needed to clean and bandage him up. I carried that stuff, renewing when it got old, for almost 20 years before actually needing it. Thanks for the awards. I have a similar experience. I have just about everything you could possibly need to survive in the car if it breaks down or something else happens. I was driving, and an old couple was crossing a driveway headed home after a nice lunch out. The lady biffed it on the curb. She had ripped quite a bit of her skin, and was bleeding all over the place. I saw them, pulled my car over, and was able to hop out, clean her up, and bandage everything up. It felt really good to be prepared, and help the frantic old couple. RPG eye roll. I'm a man and I've always kept a regular tampon in the glove box of my car. It's a small thing, but it's resolved an emergency on more than one occasion. Fellow fellas, it's something to consider adding to your car's first aid kit. You all have a car first aid kit, right? This reminded me a quote from Dwight Schrute lol. Every day for 8 years, I've brought pepper spray into this office to protect myself and my fellow employees. And every day, for 8 years, people have laughed at me. Well, Hoss laughing now, yes. Purses. Mine has 6 lipsticks, a pack of powdered soup, a first aid kit, 36 tampons and 8 pads, because who knows I guess. 2 vape coils for a vape I don't even have. 12 business cards, an expired debit card and license, and a house key to a house I moved out of 4 years ago. I wonder what of that will actually come in handy. Probably the soup. One of my coworkers does the same thing. One day I needed a spoon to eat some yogurt in the break room, and he starts digging through his many jacket pockets and finds a bundle of plastic spoons for me to use. He didn't even need them for his own lunch. He just always carries around everything he might conceivably need. So maybe not quite this, but my little sister, through a long series of events, my parents who were not foster parents and not looking to adopt ended up taking care of an infant who was not at all related to us, whose mother had just died. It was only supposed to be for a few weeks, until she could be moved to a more permanent placement. As soon as I found out that my parents had agreed to help watch her temporarily, I knew where this was going. And I had all the initial adoption application paperwork printed out before she ever got to our house. Needless to say, my parents were pretty surprised the day they said they were thinking of adopting her, and I handed them a folder of forms and my handwritten notes on how the process worked. For the record, she has legally been my little sister for 7 years now. As a parent, I'm sure your parents were touched not only by your preparation, but by the way the gesture indicated total acceptance and support for your sister becoming your sister. How old were you when she came to live with y'all? I carry a fire extinguisher in my auto. I witnessed a car accident where the engine caught fire. I quickly put it out before it burned the inside of the car. Everyone survived. What's a car safe fire extinguisher that can withstand being left inside in summer heat? I'm concerned the compressed gas propellant might burst. Today I learned that other countries don't require a fire extinguisher in their car. I'm from Brazil. Holy poop, those are not mandatory everywhere. They are required by law in Brazil. Each car comes with a small portable fire extinguisher under the driver's seat. Went through a stage as a teenager where I thought I was psychic. I know. Stupid. A friend asked me jokingly to make a prediction. I told him to get a flashlight because tomorrow would be dark. I grabbed one myself when I got home and put it in my purse. No idea why. Just did it. The next day the Eastern Seaboard blackouts happened. He still asks for predictions to this day. Well, what's gonna happen tomorrow? I'm an amateur clarinetist. I've played in the local orchestra and the like. My son was in the high school band, also played clarinet. Prior to a football game, at the warm-up area, he called me as I was about to head to the game, saying that someone in his section had a problem with their instrument. So did I have a loner? Now the thing about being a clarinet player is that everyone you know calls you every time they see a cheap plastic clarinet for sale at a garage sale or the like. So over the years, especially when my son was in junior and senior high, when I saw one of these for 50 or 100, I grabbed it. Didn't happen every day, but at the peak of my collection I had a couple of beta plastic clarinets in addition to the pretty good wooden one my son played, and Lord knows I won't trust anyone with my good clarinets in BB&A I used in the orchestra. So I grabbed both of these plastic jobs, which actually played okay, and brought them. I pulled the one I thought was the better of the two out of the car and gave it to my son's friend. Meanwhile, He says, hey, another person ran into a problem. And I got the second clarinet out of the car. How many clarinets do you have? Was my son's question. It was a proud moment. Edit wow. Thanks for all these awards and upvotes. It helps confirm I really am bananas. I've noticed a trend amongst some musicians to just slowly accumulate instruments. I has a friend with a couple acoustic guitars, a couple electric guitars, a pretty nice bass, a frankly unsettling number of banjos and ukuleles, and by far the largest gong I've ever personally seen. Mace. A person I worked with was a registered frick offender, and he had a thing for me. I told him multiple times that he made me feel uncomfortable and to stay away from me. For some reason I had nightmares about this dude. He was 6.5 feet tall and fucking hideous. Anyways, he said he was going to stop at a store that I stopped at all the time after work, and it was obvious he knew my direction when I left. I pull up to this store and has already there. Walks up to my car and I just roll down my window and spray this dude. And he dropped a billy club out of his sleeve. Everyone always told me to stop being paranoid and stop thinking he's going to attack me or unconsensual intercourse me. That has been to jail and learned his lesson. Duck that dude. He should've never been let out of prison. For reference, I'm also a 6-foot tall dude who is always prepared for the worst. I did not expect that last line. What happened after? Did he get a parole violation? What's a billy club? My stepdaughter recently moved out, and I had a keychain with unconsensual intercourse whistle. I gave her that, and got her a can of mace. My hope is she'll never need them. But fear if she does. This was at 9 years old. We had driven home, and seen the beginning wisps of smoke for the California Cedar fire in 2003. Naturally, I assumed the worst. And packed up all my clothes and spent about an hour making a travel cage for my guinea pigs. I tied their water bottle to the side so they could drink, packed up their food and their favorite furniture just in case. I then spent the next few hours monitoring the fire on the news and out in the distance from our window, periodically asking my parents if we needed to evacuate. At some point in the night the fire sped up like crazy and was literally on the hillside across the street. I went into my parents' room and said the fire is across the street, are you sure we shouldn't evacuate? At this point we all went crazy grabbing important documents and supplies, and as we were about to lock the doors and drive I realized I forgot my guinea pigs. My parents told me it was too late and I didn't have time to grab them. But when I cried and explained I had them packed up, I was able to grab them and go. The house ended up okay thanks to a neighbor putting out embers before they took. But we were gone long enough my pigs wouldn't have made it. TLDR, helped save my family and pets from a fire because I was an anxious child. Your piggies were lucky to have you as their human. Geez, you were a smart 9-year-old. When 9/11 happened my brother, who was 5 at the time, began packing a bag in case we had to escape a terrorist attack. He packed the essentials like his teddy bears, a VHS copy of Phantom Menace, his favorite toy cars and a random book my dad was reading. He would have single-handedly saved Western civilization. Edit. Wow, thank you everyone. My first gold. PS. My brother is getting engaged soon, and I think he'll tell this story at his wedding. Packed up their favorite furniture just in case. My husband and I made a plan in case of an emergency with getting our cats. One morning about 7 AM the fire alarm goes off. Wakes us up, the kitties take off running because of the noise. We jumped up, got dressed, grabbed our go bags. Our plan was to shut our bedroom doors to catch the cats in the living room. Nowhere for them to run under. We easily picked them up and put them in the carrier. We were out the door in 15 minutes or less. Turns out it was just a water sprinkler busted, but we had everything we needed. Also made us feel better if anything actually happens. I always keep an unopened deck of cards in my backpack. You never can tell when some hold'em may be needed to pass the time. But when I was at a business conference, the bigwig who was presenting to us was having to wing it with a few things because his luggage had been lost and he didn't have all of his materials. He had the PowerPoint deck, but he didn't have his props. He started going into explaining how he'd be able to demonstrate the statistical principle he was describing, only he didn't have the unopened deck of cards he needed. Voila. I was able to produce a shrink-wrap deck of cards. My boss was also in the same presentation. And he was also impressed that I just happened to have a deck of cards on me. So that's nice. 2. Specifically an unopened deck, like, if you get stuck waiting and play a game to pass the time, you just bin the cards when finished and buy a new deck.